does anyone here need a healing? And if mom says yes, then we can travel down the ancestral line of our parents into like a scene where we're almost remote viewing on our ancestors. And usually this is a traumatic experience, and we send light and healing, and it changes things very dramatically.
Remarkable. How did this all start for you? Let's go back to the beginning, when you got involved in past life regressions and these kinds of issues.
Yeah, I have a very eclectic family, and we had been living in Colorado Springs when I was a kid. There's a very, very famous book that many of the Coast listeners, I'm sure, have heard of called The Search for Bridie Murphy. Mm-hmm. And the subject of that book and the hypnotherapist lived in Colorado Springs. In case people aren't familiar, this woman had really horrible allergies, and she wasn't getting any relief medically, so they said, hey, go to a hypnotherapist. He worked with her a little while. It wasn't fully working. He said, look, I want you to go back to the source event. She goes back into this life in Ireland and starts talking in this new accent and talking about all the people in the village. And it was so profound, she ended up writing a book about it. She showed up at this luncheon, and my mother met her, bought the book, and brought it home to the family dinner table. Uh-huh. So when I was a kid, we're sitting around talking about reincarnation, and that's where it all began.
It hooked you. You got into it.
I did.
Now, the title to this new book, Heal Your Ancestors to Heal Your Life. Tell me what that means.
Because when we go into the past and we send light and grace and compassion to our forebears, that light, because there is no such thing as time, that light travels forward in time, and we can sense energetic shifts in all family members between that earliest ancestor and ourselves. So ultimately, by sending light into our ancestral past, we're actually helping ourselves and all members of the family.
Is that what you mean by genealogical regression?
Yeah, that's what I just decided to call this.
You invented this?
Yeah, I invented it. Because I don't know what else to call it. It's not a past life regression. We're not in our own past lives. It's weird because when people go into past life experiences, of course, they're seeing, quote, themselves, but of course they're not looking the same way they look in their current life. But they are very clear about saying, oh yeah, this is me. You know, I'm living in Rome in ancient times or whatever. But this is totally different. This is like we're floating over events. Now we see a scene, and when I say, well, who is this? They go, well, that's my 3 times great-grandfather. And they've never met this person before, but yet there's this whole scene going on, and they can report on it. They can have a deep sense of the feelings that the ancestor is experiencing. Obviously, most of those feelings are not very pleasant, because we're going into wars, we're going into traumas, maybe, you know, death and illness and things like that, but we're just then trying to send light and just lighten up the vibes around this so that everybody starts to feel better. And then the client, we sit there and send energy to it, and I let the client just say, okay, we're going to do this, now just let me know when this starts to feel better. So we just hold that there, and then after a period of time, this really starts to shift very, very dramatically.
By dealing with trying to heal your life, by reaching into this other level, this could you call it a level of consciousness? What would you call it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a level of consciousness. You know, there's all is that all of us here on planet Earth can put our energy and our light into different scenarios that are floating around in the multiverse, whether it's sending light to the ancestors or going into our own past lives, or, you know, I like to do a lot of global healing where we're sending light to the planet. So this is definitely one of the many spaces within consciousness that we are, you know, genetically linked to. And so, again, it's that at that level, because of the fact that we're connected to these people through DNA, it's very, very powerful, not only spiritually, but physically as well.
Interesting take of this. Now, if you don't deal with your past life, what happens?
Well, I mean, I'm starting to be convinced that more and more of us are really receiving input and energy and information, that some of which is not that pleasant, that has to do with things that are left over from our past lives. And you know, certainly we could just choose to continue going on and struggling through different various aspects, but if it's in people's mindset to want to go back and try to clear some of these things, it can make a huge difference in the current life, because that's the only reason why we would do any of this is we're trying to create more peace and more presence and joy in our current experience so that we can move out into the future with greater joy. And of course, we can't prove that past lives are real, obviously, but I just really judge all of these things on whether or not the client themselves leaves the regression experience, whether it's a genealogical regression or a past life regression, they feel more relaxed. They feel more like they have a handle on the things that are going on around them, and they have maybe an understanding, because there's stories they tell. They either experience the story of the ancestor, or in the case of past lives, they'll go into scenes and they'll see things happening, and I'll say, well, so tell me about what's happening. And they'll tell me, and I'll say, well, why does this thing that you did in the Middle Ages, why is that relating to what we're doing now? And they always can tell me, well, you know what, back then I was doing this, this, and this, and it was messing me up, and it's doing the same thing now. Okay, great. Can we let that go? Are we ready to move forward and do things differently? Or at least, if, some things are things that we maybe can't accept, can we at least come to an acceptance of things so that we can release, forgive, let go of old energy, and just kind of cut the cords with the past so we can move forward again, with more energy and just in a lighter, better way. And then when we show up in the world with the people around us who we're going to interact with on daily life and in the future, if we're feeling better, then we're going to have a better interaction with others, and then that can have a ripple effect so we can have the peaceful world that we all want to live in, George.
Well, part of your book, I want to read a little portion, says your family's past may be the key to healing in the present. This groundbreaking book explores the life-changing power of regression sessions that work with your ancestry. Now, while most sessions focus solely on the client, this book shows that by contacting and sending restorative energy to certain members of your family tree, you can initiate ripples of healing that make enormous positive transformations in your life and the world. How do you heal someone who has already passed on? How does that happen?
Because there isn't any such thing as time. We think we're living in this linear, three-dimensional world, but physicists and other scientists are starting to understand, and we're really spiritually starting to understand that all time is now. This is how we access memories from our childhood very easily. If we can go into events that happened in the past, we can quote daydream or use our imagination to project ourselves into future events. And so when we go into these spaces, it's very clear when the client is in the relaxed space, moving into that. If I say, hey, who is that? And they go, well, that's my great-great-great-great-great-grandmother. There's no hesitation. They just know it, and there's just a connection there that cannot be denied.
Do we need to know what the past life problem may have been in the family?
Well, we don't need to know it when we begin, but we will find out what it is.
Give me an example of how this would happen and work.
Yeah, like, for example, the book has a lot of different kinds of case studies. One of my favorite ones that I really like, some of these case studies are divided into, like, physical healing or a mental, emotional healing. So one of them, she showed up for a physical reason, but it turned out to be much more mental, emotional than that. This woman was a ER nurse, and she'd had migraine headaches. So, when people come to see me for past life, they're coming for a past life regression. So that's the initial reason, because they're thinking, again, kind of like I described in the Brady Murphy book, if we're not getting answers through the medical community and other things that we've tried, we might decide that this is a last resort and we're going to give it a shot. So she's having a migraine, and she's got some other things she's curious about, but that's kind of one of the list of things we're going to take a look at. And through the conversation, as we're getting to know each other, she describes the fact that she's a nurse, her mom and her grandmother were a nurse. And so during the session, again, I'm going to always begin by attempting to take them to the past life. I take her out there. There's really nothing there that's suggesting to me anything that has to do with a migraine headache. So I remember, oh, wait a minute, she mentioned the family. They're all nurses. Let's just give it a shot. So, hey, let's go meet with mom and dad. What about mom or dad? Do either of them need healing? And she said, oh, my mom's saying she needs the healing. Well, grandmother showed up also, And then we float back into the ancestral past, and this woman ends up going back and remote viewing on this event that happened in the Civil War, where she's seeing one of her ancestors, a great, however many greats, grandmother, out on the battlefield. You know, there's blasts all around. She's in the middle of this battle. She's tending to the wounded.
Oh, geez.
And the energetic shock, you know, because our energy fields are picking up vibes, you know, from the past. And so this, you know, all this trauma in the past from these blasts and the war and all of these dying, sick people, really was putting kind of a tear in the energetic field. That was what she said was, this is where the migraines are coming from. But so we looked at a physical thing, but what also happens really far more with the genealogical regression even than the past lives, because they're related to these people, they get real emotional. I mean, it's very emotional. She said, oh my gosh, you know, she goes, I see, you know, that she was a nurse, we've all been nurses, and, you know, I think everybody, we want to find, like, what is my purpose? Why am I supposed to be here on this planet? And she obviously was doing her purpose, but everybody questions that from time to time. And so she was kind of offhandedly saying things like, well, I don't know, should I still be staying in nursing, or do I need to go do something else? That, you know, that's a big issue that comes up for people who come to see me. They're wanting to know, like, what direction should I go? But when she went on that battlefield and saw that ancestor just so selflessly helping others, she got very emotional. And when she came back, she said, you know, I am telling you what, I will never question that again. I am meant to do this. It's part of who we are, and I'm going to own it, and I'm never going to deny or doubt that again. And to me, that's almost a bigger gift, because I think that a lot of the more emotional things that we struggle with in this place called Earth are sometimes a lot more difficult to get through even than some of the physical things we're struggling with. So, again, she didn't necessarily know that there was an ancestor in the Civil War when we went there, but the image, when you're in this moment, it's just so real that it's just very, very impactful.
In most of the healing you talk about, it seems now that it's primarily emotional as opposed to something physical. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, because in particular in this, like I said, there's something about them, even if they think they're coming in because they've got a physical issue, it ends up turning very emotional when they see, you know, when we think, if we really get our minds wrapped around the idea of what our ancestors must have dealt with, you know, and survived, the fact they even survived so that any of us are even here right now, to me, is a complete miracle. So it's just the nature of it. It's different. I don't know why. I think maybe we do maybe give more love and attention to other people than we do to ourselves. If we think it's just us in a past life, we're not quite as empathetic to ourselves as we, which sounds weird, but as we are when we are sensing this as someone who actually, you know, is part of our family. We just go, oh my God, you know, how does this poor person do this? It's just really emotional. And along those lines, I have to bring up, I mean, you know, for listeners out there, this isn't just Shelley coming up with some crazy stuff. I mean, they actually have scientific evidence now where they have studied the descendants of people who were in the Holocaust, and they have proven that those descendants are actually suffering greater degrees of stress and anxiety and different, you know, traumatic stress disorders, just that they have actually energetically carried through from their ancestors who survived the Holocaust. They're proving it scientifically. This is not just a bunch of fluffery, you know, which is another reason why I feel like it's just so emotional for people.
Interesting take. And you deal a lot with energy healing. You have been doing that really all your career, haven't you?
Yeah, I always use energy healing. Always, because I have come to have a real understanding. This was kind of shown to me very early in my career, intuitively, that we can go back into past events. That's wonderful. And we can talk it through. Of course, talking is wonderful, but thoughts, again, it's not just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. They really are things, and they are energetically stuck in our energy fields that are surrounding the body. And so if I can send energy to that, sometimes I'll send energy and I can sense like a big like a big ball of energy just goes whoosh, and it just gets up and leaves. That's related to this thing that they're trying to let go of. And so when we combine the two, you're shifting the person's energy field and moving it into a higher vibrational frequency and a higher state of existence. It's different than how they showed up in the first place, and so that creates a lasting change that can really bring a lot of new light and energy into the person that can make huge, huge changes in their life.
Have you ever dealt with an individual, Shelley, that you just can't get to, just can't work with that person?
There's definitely been people over the years, yes, that have been, more difficult, I guess.
What do they put up, a block or something?
Yeah, I think they block it. There's one thing. In fact, we were just talking about this the other day. I was talking to some students of mine because I train some regressionists now, and so we were doing a class over the weekend. One thing that can happen if you're watching people, like people's eyes will move, under their eyelids and stuff, and they dart around. And so if I ask somebody a question and they're telling me, like I say, okay, I want you to visualize this, or I want, go back into the 1600s and be there now and tell me what's happening. And they're like telling me out of their mouth, I'm not getting anything. But if I see their little eyeballs darting around under their eyelids, then I know that they are getting something. There's an aspect to, we don't want to acknowledge weird things that are coming through our minds, and we have to be open to allowing the imagination to emerge that, yes, there's going to be a weird thought. It's going to flash through your mind very quickly. You're going to go, where in the heck did that come from? That's crazy. And if I have to get them to speak about that and to be okay with it, because it's coming from that same place, maybe similar to dream imagery. I try to talk to them about, when you have a dream, that's some crazy stuff, right? You don't know where that's coming from. So this is similar, and I just want you to tell me what that is, and then we're just going to go with it and just see where it takes us. And that is really the same place that this comes from. So if I'm having a particularly difficult client, I've got to do my best to get them to remove those blocks. Occasionally they won't.
All right, hold on, Shelley. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and talk more about past lives and regression in a moment on Coast to Coast AM.
Sign up now for Coast Zone, our free email newsletter. Get it today at coasttocoastam.com.
From the KFI 24-hour newsroom. Herd immunity is proving more difficult to achieve than first thought. LA County was supposed to get there by the end of summer. Now health officials say maybe in the fall. They say the growing prevalence of the highly contagious Delta variant is to blame. At the port of LA, a cargo ship from China was searched by authorities. They found nearly 50,000 Cialis pills, more than 10,000 apparel and footwear items from Gucci, Chanel, and Nike, among others. It was all fake. Police arrested Kansas City Chiefs defensive end Frank Clark in downtown Los Angeles. Cops spotted a submachine gun sitting in his car. Clark says the gun belongs to his bodyguard. He's out on bail. Southland weather from KFI. Low clouds and fog to start. Lingering at the coast. Otherwise sunny this afternoon. Highs in the upper 60s at the beaches. Right about 80 for the LA and OC metros. Near 90 in the valleys and the IE. Not much different tomorrow. Right now it's 63 in Anaheim, Lake Forest 60, Cerrito 64, and in West LA currently 63 degrees. We lead local from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Phil Hewlett.
It's a full freeway closure in Huntington Beach this morning, southbound side of the 405. All lanes are shut down at Beach Boulevard, taking everybody off the freeway here as late as 5 for a Caltrans project. You're back on Magnolia. Long Beach, northbound 405 just before Long Beach Boulevard. Fender benders in the right lane. Look for little spectators slowing there. And in Pasadena, westbound 210 at the 134. This is unfortunately an investigation into a fatal accident. The two right lanes are blocked. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Ryan Duggan.
It was a beautiful June morning in Southern California,
Birds were chirping, the sun was shining.
and somewhere on a quiet residential street, a sink was clogging.
The couple experiencing the clog
Mr. and Mrs. JP
did something they had never done before. They called the Smell Good plumbers at Mike Diamond. I'm Mike Diamond. I guarantee my plumbers will show up on time and unclog your sink for $99.
A technician showed up promptly and unclogged the sink.
A few months later, a much more intensive problem turned up in the bathroom.
Mr. JP called Mike Diamond again. They worked up a plan and the repair was made.
Mr. and Mrs. JP felt good enough about the experience to sit down and write us an email.
They commended the Smell Good plumbers on their service and closed by saying they would use Mike Diamond on future services and recommend them to anyone in need of plumbing repairs.
We love Mr. and Mrs. JP, and we'd love for you to read their testimonial and more before calling your next plumber. The address is MikeDiamond.com, or just call us at 1-800-446-MIKE. Contractor's license number 399170.
Hey, it's Dean Sharp. So, what did you do during the last power outage? My guess is not much, because the power was off. Yeah, nothing disrupts your life, your comfort, even your safety like a power outage. And the power companies have spoken. Outages are the new normal. So here's my advice. Set up your home with a permanent emergency generator from my friends at Duthie Power, and it never has to happen again. Duthie is Southern California's generator experts. KFI trusts Duthie with our generators, and so should you. And with 0% interest financing and payments as low as $72 a month, your emergency power is totally affordable. From the largest commercial systems to your unique home, Duthie Power will make sure your life, your comfort, and your safety won't be interrupted during the next outage or all the ones after that. Dial pound 250 on your cell and say Duthie Power. Pound 250 Duthie Power, or find Duthie on the web at DuthiePower.com. That's DUTHIE Power.com.
KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
There's a lid for every pot. For every single person, there is a person.
Really?
There's only 7 billion of us. You mean you can't pair off with somebody? Or even find a polyamorous thing? Maybe you get 4 or 5 other people in the wheel?
Taught us. Sometimes there's 2 lists.
Jerry and Sharon. Weekdays at 10 a.m. KFI.
Monday morning is so bad. Everybody seems to nag me. Coming Tuesday, I feel better. Even my old man looks good. Wednesday just don't go. Thursday goes too slow. I got Friday on my mind.
AM with George Norrie.
We will take your calls with Dr. Shelley Kerr next hour as we talk about past lives and regression, so make sure you're part of that. Much more to talk with her about. Her latest book is called Heal Your Ancestors to Heal Your Life. Well, we're 47 people shy of 112,000 signed-up members at ParanormalDate.com. People are getting together, they're getting married, they're enjoying their lives. Free to sign up at ParanormalDate.com. And if you're over 60, what do we have, Tommy?
Well, I'll tell you what, just the other day, my friend Verno was asking me about dating for his older relatives. I told him the same thing I tell everybody. If you're a senior and you're looking for that special person, we've created ParanormalDate.com/seniors, and there you'll find people that are 60 plus. And these are people that think like you do and like to discuss the things you like. So head on over. It's ParanormalDate.com/seniors.
And if you're looking for ways to preserve youth, how about this?
Instant Beauty stunning results that best describes instantly ageless. A velvety microcream applied lightly on forehead wrinkles, eyebrows, under eye bags, crow's feet, facial pores, and hooded eyes. Within minutes, skin is tight and smooth. No needles, no pain. And great for women and men. Here's what people are saying about instantly ageless.
I've probably noticed in the past 5 years that my eyes have gained a lot of fine lines, wrinkles, my crow's feet have gotten deeper. Wow, I was hoping for 5 years, but that's like what my eyes looked like 10 years ago. That is really cool. Wrinkle gone.
It's easy. You just put it on your finger and go. Now I wish I had more down here because I can still see one wrinkle. It's bugging me.
I am a little bit emotional. I'm turning 40. I didn't think would be a big deal to me, but that looks like the me that I feel like inside instead of what I see when I look in the mirror.
Instant results with Instantly Ageless. Now Instantly Ageless is shipped for free with smart delivery. Just use discount code GEORGE. If you would like to sample Instantly Ageless, order our hassle-free starter kit with free shipping for only $19.99. Instantly Ageless is not available in stores, so order today at healthylooking.com. That's healthylooking.com. Or by phone, 800-604-3129. 800-604-3129, 24/7. Instantly Ageless from healthylooking.com.
According to a recent study, 330 million people became victims of cybercrime, and another 55 million had their identity stolen. And this can cost victims money, but it also takes a lot of the victims' time. Cybercrime victims collectively spend almost 2.7 billion hours trying to resolve their issues. So important to understand how cybercrime and identity theft are affecting our lives. Every day we put our information at risk on the internet, and in an instant, a cyber criminal could harm what's yours, your finances, your credit, and good thing there's LifeLock. LifeLock helps detect a wide range of identity threats, like your Social Security number for sale on the dark web. You'll have access to a dedicated restoration specialist if you become a victim. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but you can keep what's yours with LifeLock by Norton. Join now, save up to 25% off your first year with promo code GEORGE25. Call 1-800-LifeLock and mention George25 or head on over to lifelock.com. Use promo code GEORGE25 for 25% off.
Unforgettable. That's the impression that you, the Rush Limbaugh audience, made with your support for Rush's last charitable effort. Your generosity resulted in a $5 million donation to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Rush said it best.
We chose Tunnel to Towers to be the beneficiary of the campaign because we love the work they do. When a family experiences significant loss, the mother or father passes while serving our country, Tunnel to Towers steps in, pays off mortgages in full for these families, and provides them with the comfort of a home when their world has literally been turned upside down.
The foundation does the same for first responders and also builds smart homes for our most catastrophically injured veterans and first responders. Do good by donating $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's the letter T, the number 2, the letter T.org.
And welcome back. George Norrie along with Dr. Shelley Kerr. Her book, Heal Your Ancestors to Heal Your Life. Shelley, where do people get this book?
They can go to my website at pastlifelady.com, and there's a link there.
Simple as that. How far back have you regressed some people?
I have regressed them back to balls of light in the universe.
Whoa. 14 billion years ago?
Yes.
How do you do that?
I take them down and I ask them to go back to the earliest time, and some of them do go back into that space where they're floating around as love and light and consciousness.
What's the most shocking thing you've done when you're giving someone a past life regression that they've said? That just, just boggled your mind.
Oh my gosh. So many things. Gosh. I guess I'm still thinking about my very favorite regression that I ever did. It was a middle-aged man who was afraid of the dark and couldn't
really
put lights out in his house, and I took him back to a farmhouse in the Midwest. It was about 1700s, where he was a little boy and he fell down some stairs into a basement and passed away. And so I had to just go back and pretend, or go back through the scene and act like there was a candle there, and he was able to light the staircase and walk down the stairs to explore the area that a parent had told him not to explore, so he lived through it. And then when he came back, he said he felt better, but I actually saw him years later, and he said after that session he was able to turn out the lights. So that's still the one that kind of blows my mind.
So a past life regression sometimes, is that what you also mean by healing, right?
Yes. Yes. In this case, he went into the past life to get, again, well, what we're trying to do is get somebody to a source event, in this case, where he first feared the dark. And so that could have happened when he was a kid in this lifetime. It could have happened last week, but in this case, it happened hundreds of years ago. And so then by having him reshape the event into something new where he succeeded, and then we did some energy healing around that, then it shifted his reality.
A lot of people have phobias. Could that have started in a past life?
Absolutely, yes. There's all kinds of, fears of, in this case, fears of the dark. There's there's a lot of water or fires. People have passed away and perished in other lifetimes because of different elements of nature. And so you can go back there. And maybe that means, that they're not going to be completely at ease with it, but can they be at least more relaxed than they were before? In fact, I guess last year I did work with a lady. She was afraid of water, and we took her back into a past life where she had drowned, and so we did a lot of work around that. And then about a week after the session, she was able to get into the swimming pool in the shallow end. She hadn't been able to do that. And her husband eventually wanted her to go scuba diving, so that's why that was one of the many reasons she had come to see me. So it does work.
Have you come across situations where somebody has a birthmark, and then in a past life, they may have had a scar there or something?
Yes, this is really interesting. In fact, in the Heal Your Ancestors to Heal Your Life, there's a case study about that because, when people have unusual birthmarks, that is one thing that we could assume is that maybe this is being carried over from their past lives. And so I had a client, and we discussed, she was kind of having some low-grade depression and some other things, and she was there to see me about that. We did discuss her birthmark. I said, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I wonder if that has ties to a past life. And in this case, we never found any evidence of that, but she did end up going down the ancestral line on her father's side to a past life where one of her ancestors had been shot in the face in the same place where this birthmark was.
We have one of our callers, she might call tonight, who swears up and down that she is the reincarnated Cleopatra. And she knows a lot about Cleopatra, I'll tell you that. I mean, it's amazing. How many people, when you go through a past life, happen to be people that have had well-known names and stuff like that?
That's what's also, for me, very validating about the work, is that occasionally I do run across someone who feels they're someone of note, but most of the time, and I would say 90% of the time, maybe even 95% of the time, people are just everyday, normal people. And so the fact that it's normal most of the time, I guess, makes me feel that this